What does it take for you to be a leader? You might say, well, I'm not a leader. I'm not in charge of anything. Jesus taught that leadership is not about being in charge, but about being a servant. Jesus said, leaders serve others. Good morning and welcome to 755 Live. For about 5 minutes, you'll hear all about easy to remember soundbite versions of what Jesus said. And the point is to help you experience life to the fullest, the Jesus way. Today's Jesus Said comes from Matthew 20, verses 26 through 28, and we'll be reading from the New Living Translation today, where Jesus said, "But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Now, the context of what Jesus said here is, well, it's something that I like to call the disciple mom. You've probably heard or known of a stage mom or dad who thinks their kid is a rock star. Well, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, had a disciple mom. Before this statement, in verse 20, she had asked Jesus for her sons to have seats of honor in the kingdom. And then when the other disciples heard this, they became indignant. And today's soundbite is how Jesus responded when the disciples were upset about who would be the most important in the kingdom. Now, Jesus made this same point in many different ways, but these disciples were hard-headed, much like us. In Luke 22, after the Lord's Supper, the disciples had another argument. They began to ask each other which of them would ever do such a thing. Now, what were they talking about? Well, Jesus had just been talking about who would betray him. So in verse 23, they're saying, who in the world would do this? And then verse 24, then they began to argue among themselves about who would be the greatest among them. Now just wrap your head around that for a minute. Jesus is saying somebody will betray me. And their response was, well, who would do that? Let's argue about which one of us will be the greatest in the kingdom. Going on in Luke 22, verse 25, Jesus told them, in this world, the kings and great men lord it over their people, yet they are called friends of the people. Unpacking that a little bit, Jesus is making a contrast there. He says, even though they're called friends, they lord everything over the people. Verse 26, but among you it will be different. Those who are the greatest among you should take the lowest rank, and the leader should be like a servant. Don't be like earthly leaders, is what Jesus is saying. There should be a difference. Well, what is that difference? Well, it's not about you. Bottom line, following Jesus is not about you. Jesus came to serve and not to be served. And following Jesus means that we want to help others, not be in charge. That's why the soundbite today is leaders serve others. Because here's what happens. If you show up or do what you do for yourself, for what you get out of it, guess what? That selfishness will eventually lead to frustration, discouragement, and disappointment. And then you'll get to the point where you choose comfort and convenience over obedience because the whole time it has been all about you. But when it's about those that you serve because they represent Jesus to you, then your commitments to others become much more important to keep. And many say, well, but I'm not a leader. Well, we are different parts of the body, and we do have different giftings. Yet, we are all called to be disciple makers. We are all called to lead others to Jesus. We are all called to love one another and serve the least of these among us. So the question is, are you living for yourself or to help someone else? What more can you do to serve others like Jesus did. Jesus said, leaders serve others. How can you put that into action today? Thank you so much for listening. If this is meaningful to you, it really does mean a lot when you like it, when you share it, when you comment. I really, really appreciate you. I hope that you have an amazing day, and I hope this time together has helped you live life to the fullest, the Jesus way. And remember, follow Jesus today. Love first.